Right, hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Healing Conversations. My name is Einav Avni and Untangled Coaching, and with me today is Robyn Harris. Robyn, hello.
Hello, Einav. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for joining us. Please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, all of that.
Okay, thank you. My name is Robyn Harris, and my business, it's an interesting name, Equenergy Wild Wellbeing. And Equenergy is a fusion of equilibrium, so balance, and energy, because when we can get our energies back into balance and they feel in flow, we experience well-being in a very natural way. And the wild is an acronym of the four pillars that I work to. And it also ties in with the fact that my work is largely based around the wisdom of nature. We are beings of nature. We have evolved within nature. And although we don't live quite as closely to it as we used to, we still have those needs and uh, just we are designed to live in parallel with nature. So the rhythms of day and night, being outdoors, getting the fresh air, getting the natural sunlight, all of these things are so great for our well-being because we are beings of nature. And there's so much more within nature and the wisdom of nature and all that she shares with us that we can learn from that support us, and remembering that we are just natural beings. We're another form of animal. Sometimes we ignore that, but sometimes that can impact on our well-being in a negative way. So when we can get back to remembering we're just natural beings, how do I listen to that? How do I support that in the way that I live, or bring little bits of that into my life to support me? Then we do feel the benefit of that. And that's what I share with people. And I share with them sort of ideas and ways that they can do that, because it doesn't matter where you live. I live rurally, but it doesn't matter if you live in a city. You can still bring the wisdom of nature and little bits of nature into your experience, into your day-to-day life, and feel all the better for it.
Amazing. And that definitely resonates. I definitely resonates. I remember, when my daughter was very young, I always used to joke that I think that that she thinks that we live in the park and just come home for a little bit. Uh, and nowadays it's completely the opposite. I don't even think, I don't think she remembers what the park looks like.
Mhm.
But tell me, how did it all start for you? How did you realize that actually nature and this energy balance and all of that is the thing for you?
Well, it's because of my own journey. I had got to the point a few years ago where I felt utterly miserable. And I thought, this is it. I am stuck with this life. I couldn't see the possibility even of it getting any better. And I thought, I can't, when you think this is going to go on forever and you just think, I can't bear it. I can't live like this. And so I tried some traditional methods of support, as you do when you're in that situation. I went to the doctor and I got medication, which did not work for me. I went to see a counsellor. That didn't work for me. And it may have been the particular counsellor and the particular time. This is going back a few years ago. But reflecting just recently, even, I realized neither of those were working for me, because I felt I was becoming dependent on an external thing, and that I was still in victim mode. So I went off, and I'm a bit of a bookworm. I did a lot of reading, and I went on a 9-month online course based on a book called Evolutionary Enlightenment by Andrew Cohen. And in that course, we had just a whole shift. We were encouraged to, well, how would you think about this on your deathbed? How would you think about this if you weren't worried about X, Y, Z? And all of a sudden, I realized, wow, it can look so different just by shifting my perception a little bit. And I came across Wayne Dyer, who said that when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change.
Mm.
And Bruce Lipton, who talks about the biology of belief. And as soon as you change your perspective, the whole chemistry of your body changes. So I began to realize that I was looking out there for the answers, and I was expecting this thing to be different and that person to be different, but I couldn't control those things. So of course I was miserable because I was banging my head against a brick wall. But that if I looked inwards instead, and I looked at my beliefs and where they weren't serving me, and where maybe I could reframe them and change them, and oh, I'll take a step this way and look at it from that angle, and then I'll take a step this way and look at it from that angle, and wow, how different that can actually make it look. And I've got a great little cartoon where there is a number that's kind of lying on the floor, and one guy's in one place at one end of the number, and the other guy's at the other place. You can see where this is going, can't you? And one guy's saying it's a 6, and the other one's going, no, it's not, it's a 9. Just because they're looking at the number from a very different perspective. So the same is true for us in our lives. And you look at siblings, they grow up maybe in the same household, and they have very different experiences of their childhood, because they're looking at it from different perspectives with different beliefs, which are like a lens through how we look at the world, what we filter in and out. Because if I said to you, today I want you to look out for all the red cars, and at the end of the day, if I said to you, how many blue cars did you see? Well, I don't know, I was only looking for red ones. So you'd have seen lots of red cars. And if tomorrow I said, well, look for the blue cars today, you'd see lots of blue ones. It's just how we set our filters. And so I was going through this whole process, and I was working with a therapist, and she said to me, well, what do you love? What lights you up? Where do you feel really good? And my whole being was screaming, nowhere, nothing. But somewhere from some little core inside of me said, outdoors, in nature. So she gave me a project to change our garden where we were living. And our garden was basically a square of very long grass and a lot of moss. It was so wet, frogs lived in it. And so I didn't think I could do anything with it. But over probably about 2 years, I created a wildlife garden. So put up a fence and an archway, and so it had lots of layers to the garden, and we had trees growing over from next door. We put in a pond. We then got all the creatures coming to live in the pond, and just seeing, I put in an apple tree, I put in herbs. So to see how things changed over the seasons, and how if I worked with the garden, so I initially said, I want this plant in my garden, but it didn't like the environment, so it died. But I put in other things, and they self-seeded and went crazy. It loved Welsh poppies and forget-me-nots. Every year I had this sea of blue. It was stunning. So learning to work with the environment, and it's the same for us. When we have the environment that suits us, we thrive. But that's the outer and the inner environment. And it includes what we watch, what we read, what we listen to, what we follow on social media, the people we spend time with. If any of that feels heavy and is dragging us down, we won't feel at our best. So when we surround ourselves with all of the things that lift us up or support us and help us when we're not feeling the best, then we'll feel better. But equally, the same is true for inside. So I had to learn that my self-talk was not very good. I had taken on all of these, and you'll know all about this with your negative self-talk work. But I'd taken on board all of these voices from my past and my childhood and growing up that really were not supporting me. They were so critical and pulling me down most of the time. So I learned that those weren't my voices. I could find ways to find out why they had stuck, find out what my kind of emotion was behind that, what my belief was, what my need was, address that need. And then I didn't, I could let that voice go. It wasn't that it just disappeared. I still have to pay attention. And if it comes back, then choose not to engage with it, choose to put in something else that feels good. But that has really shifted things immensely for me. And it was learning that from the garden and from the seasons and watching things go on. Even if I feel that something is horrendous, I've made a huge mistake, I've done something terrible, I used to think that was the end of the world. And now I see, no, tomorrow's a new day. Things move on. I'll get another chance. Season will come round again. And you watch the apple tree bloom and you see that it takes time for the apples to grow, and then you can eat the apples. And there's so much wisdom within nature. She has so much to share that is, when we can take it on board and really sit with it, it helps us on such a deep level. It sounds simple, and I think it is. I think that's the beauty, because we look for things, we think our problems are big and they're complex and they're painful, so the solutions have to be big and complex and painful. But actually the solution is in the small things. It's in the simplicity of things, but it's just in that done on a regular basis. And that's what helps us to thrive. Like a plant, it needs food, light and water to
And I
different
think,
degrees.
sorry, interrupted. I was just gonna say, I think it's two very different phases actually, right? Because the first thing you have to do is to actually acknowledge that there is a problem and that the problem is fixable, because so often we are in that victimhood and we are in that mindset that says, actually, this is the best that it's going to be. I don't know how to fix it, so it's probably going to be this way. And then also to recognize that actually there is all this habitual thinking and the conditioning and everything that gets us to where we are today. So until we are able to start, separating between how we feel and our reality, in a sense, we can't really move forward. And a lot of the time, it's, we recognize how we feel, we might take a step forward, then we think actually it doesn't work, we go even deeper into our misery, and then it's kind of that ping pong game for a long time, until one day, as you said, you need to say, actually, there's got to be something more than that. And it's probably, as you also said, it's not necessarily external, it's probably about how I see things, how I look at things. But it's I recognize that this is so huge, actually, to be able to recognize that it's all internal, and that actually it's about your beliefs and how we look at things, how we believe things are. and
And I
and
think
so,
we need to be careful about how we put this across, because it's not to say it's all internal, it's my fault.
no,
And I
not
think
of
sometimes
course.
people hear it that way, even when we're trying not to say it that way. So just to say that it is internal, in that gives me the power. It gives me, sometimes we feel our life is so out of control. I know I did. I felt that everybody else was making the decisions, and I kind of was allowing that because I didn't feel that I had enough clout, enough influence, enough power in myself to say no, and to have my boundaries and all of that stuff, which is so important. And I just didn't really appreciate, but
Yeah.
how much difference that makes. And I love words and play on words. When we can live with that level of integrity to our values, integrity to the the value of who we are, and the dignity that we can live with, when we live with that kind of integrity, it gives us structural integrity, and we can stand firm in who we are, but firm as, again, nature. If you think of a tree, it's firm and yet it can bend and it can sway. So not firm as in rigid, which was certainly something I tried to do when I'll keep my boundaries, and it was so rigid that it was brittle and fragile, and it would snap, and I
Mm.
would snap. But when we can be more tree and stand firm with deep roots that give us structure and strength and support, but at the same time, we're flexible enough that we can go with the flow. Life is always throwing us curveballs, isn't it? And if we get hit by that and we're not flexible, we might break or crumple. But when we can be flexible, and also I think that ability to take a step back and have a different perspective and have a sense of proportion, because I was always, it's huge. I think I was much too close to all my issues. But also when you talk about having a problem and recognizing that we have a problem, I think we need to be careful in that as well, because sometimes then there's the sense I'm broken. It's again, it's a kind of a fault, and I'm broken and I need fixing. What I really think we need to do is like your work with the negative voice. Where's that coming from? How can we put it down? How can we let it go? Or Jack Cornfield says, not let go, but let be. Just let it be. It can just do its own thing. I don't need to engage with it. It's not a part
Absolutely.
of me. It's not who I am.
And I definitely agree with that. And of course, this is, this is the most beautiful thing, is that when you're able to exactly that, let go of how you're feeling and saying, actually, I'm showing up with curiosity. I'm not getting attached to how I'm feeling. I'm not getting overwhelmed by it. I don't think necessarily I'm broken. I just recognize that I am just not where I want to be.
Mm.
And I think, just going back to that, is it fault? I don't think it's fault, but I think that when we, at the beginning, when we are in victimhood and we go internal, we are believing that we are at fault. And later on, when we look internally and we say, actually, it's just in the way that I look at things. So you're starting to disengage. I think that's when the magic starts.
That's
And
when you start to see the possibility and potential, isn't it?
yeah, exactly. And now the question is, what is next? So
Yeah.
I really like what you're saying about nature, and that you take all the inspiration from nature, and how, be more tree and all of that. That's exactly where we are aiming. What is the step before that, basically? That, when you're starting to recognize that, maybe like you said, all of the work that you've done by yourself, recognizing that, you know, you need to start learning how to look at things differently, and recognizing that maybe you're basically getting hit by your belief systems, and now you can change that. But what is something that people can do by themselves, as a as an in between stage, before between feeling broken and to being more with nature? What is the in between stage?
I find that kind of difficult in a way because it makes it sound like it's linear. And I
Hmm.
think it's actually probably either cyclical or it's dotted all over around the place. And it's which comes first, the chicken or the egg.
Hmm.
But I think it is cyclical in that as you develop it, it feeds back into and it goes around. But I think learning self care, learning to appreciate that we are a unique individual, that we have come, been created, manifested, arrived at this point in time as we have stuff to give, we have light inside of us, we have a purpose to be here. And it's, I guess it's like the chakras as well, because if you think of that, that's like the root chakra. And when you have strong roots, it's a great place to grow from. And the mantra behind the root chakra is I am. Just I am. One of the shortest sentences, but the most powerful and most creative sentences that we can ever say.
Hmm.
And just to start to explore that, start to sit with that, start to feel that I am. I have every right to be here. I have every right to be here as me, not as other people's expectations or what I've been told or what the system says I should be, but just I am me and I am valid as me. Uh, and just to sit and let that sink in and to maybe meditate on that or journal on that or be mindful around that. And in that, I think we start to kind of feel that groundedness, feel that centeredness, feel that sense of maybe that's true. Maybe I am here to just be me. And maybe that's to me what our purpose is. And the other stuff is surface stuff to a large degree. But what we're really here for, I think, is to be me, to be human, to find out what that really means, to dive deep and explore that. And oh, maybe it's this, and maybe it's that, and maybe this is what I could do with being human, and how could I express that, and then just to let everybody else do that too, and have all of that diversity and the color and the flavor of all of that, and just to explore all of that. But in doing that, to get to know ourselves better, to get to understand and have deeper insight into who we are and what we bring, and through that to have compassion for ourselves, to know that oops, I've made a mistake, but it's okay. Oops, I wish I hadn't done that way. But that's okay, particularly if I'm taking a step back and kind of observing it and just noticing and not judging, not saying it was right or wrong, good or bad, but just, oh, I did it that way. I didn't really like that. How could I do it differently? And also, why did I do it that way? Why did it not work? Like you said, just having that curiosity. And just if we can put in the phrase, oh, that's interesting, rather than what we so often jump on, isn't it? I shouldn't have done that. That was wrong. That wasn't right. That was bad. All of those negative, judgmental voices.
Yeah. And then this was just the default, right? We're not really thinking about how we
No,
speak
we've
to
just taken
ourselves.
them
It
on
just come
board.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there is one of the things that I work with my clients is really about recognizing or identifying their values. There is a Barrett Value Center that they created this values assessment, and it's basically you get given 10 value. You need to choose 10 values out of a list of 60 that resonate with you, with who you are today, and then the values that you choose, they get distributed over a pyramid, and the pyramid has two sides, and the bottom side is all about the basic needs. So it's, do I have enough? Am I loved enough? Am I acknowledged enough? And then there is a middle in between stage, and then there is the upper pyramid, which is, it's really now about the soul needs. It's all about, you know living through your values, about making a contribution to the world, making an impact on the world, collaborating with others. And so it's really interesting, that a lot of the time when people start recognizing that they're unhappy is just as they are coming out of the basic needs, and they start to wake up to the understanding that actually the purpose is not about self, it's actually about selfless, it's about the giving and the contributing and the making an impact in the world. So with this values assessment, it's always very helpful to people to recognize that they are on this journey, and it's about really accepting, you are where you are and you're collecting understanding. So this is a wonderful stage to get into all of this, to say, now I can help you, I can guide you on this way between, where you are at the moment and where you obviously gearing yourself up to be.
Yeah, and it's like Maslow's triangle, isn't it? We start off just with our basic needs, and until our basic needs are met, we
Yeah.
can't look further. And if you take it to the physical basic needs, food, shelter, water, without those things, we can't think any further.
Mhm.
So once those needs begin to be met, then we start to think, if we've got shelter, okay, we've got a cave, maybe we could decorate it, or we've got basic food, maybe we could cook it, maybe we could add a bit more spices. We start to expand on that, and
Yeah.
then we start to think higher up, and then at the top move towards self-actualization. But
Mhm.
yes, until we've met the basic needs. And it's interesting if you think about that in the society in which we live, because many of us, just going with the simple food side of things, many of us in the first world are overfed but undernourished. So we've got plenty of food to eat, most of us,
Mm.
but it's not necessarily the right food, and it's not giving our body the nutrients it needs. And so we still feel hungry. So
Mm.
if you're hungry for something, it can be that that need isn't being met. But unfortunately, we've often learnt inappropriate ways to try and meet those needs, and then they're not then being satisfied. So we're still feeling something's missing. It's not there. So I think
Mm.
it's when we bring it back to the simple, and we just actually remember that we are multi-layered beings. We have physical, emotional, cognitive, spiritual, social needs. And it's to address all of those, and to address them quite often because of the social element in community. And as well, because in community, we begin to know who we are by interacting with others,
Yeah.
because they are other. How does that? It's when we travel, it's like when we go to another country, we begin to see their culture, and that's when we know our own. Because otherwise, it's just, this is my norm. I don't know any different.
Yeah.
But when I see other, I start, ooh. And if I can keep the curiosity, ooh, that's interesting. They see things this way, they do things that way. I might give that a go. I might try that on for size. And then I can either, yeah, that works for me, or no, that's not me. But it just helps us to get that insight and to take in more and more, and it kind of expand rather than getting stuck and shrunk as we can tend to do when we feel stuck and we feel like everything's going wrong. Our world just shrinks because we block off the bits that we don't like and try to keep away from it, but it doesn't work in the long run.
Yeah. And so tell me, so people come, they come to work with you, or they interact with your content and stuff. What is, like you said, a lot of the time, yeah, some people live in closer to nature, and some people obviously not, like they're in cities and stuff. What is some of the way that you're working with people to help them get more into that balance?
I look at all the layers that I was mentioning. So look at the physical, emotional, spiritual, social, all of the aspects of our being, and encourage people to explore them. So, if you live in a city and you want to bring more nature into your life, there are lots of ways you can do that. Just spend time by a window, so you get, open the window if you can, natural light. If you're not able, because we can't all go outdoors and we can't all spend all of our time outdoors, but just the little things, it really is keeping it simple. Go for a walk. If you've got a park, go to the park. Just get outdoors into natural light. So you get the light, you get the air, hopefully fresh air. I know in the inner cities, sometimes that's a challenge, but a lot of our cities do have really nice parks. So yeah, getting outdoors, getting the fresh air, getting the movement as well. Because often if we feel stuck, it's because we are multi-layered and we're quite metaphorical beings. Feeling stuck can mean that we just shut down and we end up just sitting and not doing very much. But just to get up and to move around shifts your energy, raises your vibration. You feel different, and you feel a sense of possibility. And, I could try this, I could do that. Whereas before it was all just, for me, when I was in that state, it was just can't, won't work, no point. Versus if you get up and move around, you think, oh, well, actually, maybe this is something that I could do, or because it just gets your creative juices going as well. So, if you want to have a bit of nature in your life, get a plant, get a pet if you can. Even if you live in a small flat, maybe you have somewhere you could have a window box and you could grow something to eat. You could grow herbs, you could grow peppers or chili peppers. A lot of people seem to be growing chili peppers these days. So whatever you can do, because even just caring for a plant and just watching it as it grows through the seasons, just noticing what it needs, what does it thrive with more water, with less water? Do you need to feed it? Does it like where it is in terms of the light it's getting? All of these things that are food for thought for ourselves. It's that thing of if the plant isn't thriving, you don't blame the plant, you change the environment. And it's the same for us. So it's just all of those things that can be food for thought, be something to reflect on and ponder on, and remembering that we are just beings of nature ourselves. So if it works that way for a plant, what about us?
I have a friend that when she started like a back garden, she had a small backyard, and she bought all these planters and stuff, and she was saying that watching the process of planting the seeds and then seeing what grows and what doesn't grow, even that very simple act was really helping her to recognize that, reflecting that on her life. If she tried to do something in her business, some of the things will work and some of the things will not work in exactly the same way as planting those seeds, because obviously some of them grow and some of them don't. So it was very helpful for her to recognize that sometimes we don't need to put so much effort into things, but actually more allowing things to just flow as they're meant to flow. So,
And we don't blame the seed, do we?
no, we don't.
It was a bad seed. How dare it not grow? Just, it
Yeah.
wasn't, that seed wasn't a viable seed, like an idea maybe wasn't a viable idea, or it didn't suit that soil. Maybe the idea was a great idea, but it just wasn't the right time, wasn't the right people, wasn't the right place. It, yeah, we beat ourselves up, we blame ourselves for things that maybe aren't as successful or didn't go the way that we think or expect them to go, but maybe it was nothing that we did. So, and I love that idea of we maybe need to allow more, push less and allow more, and
Mm.
just see what will develop. Because sometimes if we take a step back and let it go, it actually does better. Sometimes plants, you can overwater them and then they get sickly. Whereas if we give them a bit of ignoring, they might do better.
Yeah, they might do what they need to do.
And also with seeds, it's that thing of you put the seed in the ground and then you have to wait. And you think nothing's happening. And if you get a bit impatient, you might go poking around saying, where is my shoot? Why hasn't it appeared yet? But it's actually doing so much under the ground before we can get to see anything above the ground level.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be true for ourselves and for the things that we try to create as well.
Yes. Yes. And it is, I also know for myself, whenever I have a chance to get into nature and be connected with something like going to the seaside, for me, that's definitely my happy place. And not being able to go there so very often these days, it's definitely like, there's a longing there. And it is interesting. It's that thing that fills us with something. And what we the memories and the way that we have it anchored in our feelings and stuff. So for me, definitely wanting to go back into the seaside to be around the water is something that is calling me. So I definitely like what you're saying about how to bring the nature back into your life and how to try and do more of that.
Yeah, and you can bring, obviously it's not quite the same, but you can bring aspects of whatever your favorite place is into your day. So they have a lot of recordings now of nature sounds because they are known to be good for our well-being. So you
Mm-hmm.
could listen to the sounds of the rain if you're somebody who loves the sound of the rain. You can listen to waves lapping up against a shore, or wind in the trees, whatever it is that works for you. So you can then just close your eyes and picture yourself in that environment and just allow that, because it has such a calming effect, even though it's not the real nature. Obviously, that's the ideal, but we can't always have that, as you're saying, through lockdown and so on. We couldn't get out and about as much as we wanted to. But there are still ways that we can bring little bits into our lives and just to feel as much benefit as we can from them and how that benefits our well-being.
So how do people, before they come to work with you, how do they know to recognize that what they're missing is nature? How do they make this connection before they find you? I mean, afterwards, I definitely understand that you have this conversation, but beforehand, how do they know that you are the one to help them to get out of that, you know,
I
maybe
think
resort.
people who connect with me generally already know that they love nature
Mhm.
or animals, because I work around animals and have a great passion for animals, and quite often that's something that will connect me with somebody because we have that shared interest. In terms of how they know to come, that they need to do something, that they're looking for a way to address how they're feeling, I think
Mhm.
it's just that sense of feeling out of balance, feeling that something is off, because sometimes we can't put our finger on it, but we just know. We always know, unless we're like shutting it off because we don't want to look at it.
Yeah.
And even then, things don't feel right. We always have a sense of, I'm not where I could be. Things aren't as good as they could be, or sometimes it's quite extreme and things are really bad and I must do something. So people
Mhm.
are somewhere generally along that spectrum. Um, and then they're looking. Even when we're maybe not consciously looking, we're still looking. And I think whoever is in that situation, they will feel drawn to something. They'll hear somebody speak, they'll see a post, or they'll, somebody will say to them, this is maybe for you, but something will happen and that connection is made. But basically, why people look, I think it's just that feeling of it's not right. Something's off. That was certainly how it was for me. And I wasn't looking for nature that I was conscious of, though something
Yeah,
in me obviously was.
yeah,
In fact, I would have thought that I was not an outdoors person. And I
yeah,
think sometimes we do that. We go to the extreme and then we have to swing back the other way to find out actually I am meant to be more outdoors. Yeah. So I think it's lots of different things, but it is, as a general, it's that feeling of I'm not happy, I'm not satisfied, something isn't right. Uh, I'm just not where I could be, should be, want to be. And so looking for something more, and sometimes it's that kind of existential need, because I want my life to be more. I want more happiness. I want more joy in my life. I want more well-being in my life. I want life to feel easier,
yeah.
whatever,
And a
in
lot of the
whatever.
time, people have that thing, right? And they say, "Well, life used to be so good, and everything was so
Yeah.
there was no problems. Everything was just so easy." And now, look at me now, and they really don't have. It's like, what happened, and what do I do now to try and bring some of this, to find out. I think it's the trying to bring the new, to discover who am I now that I obviously lost in the years that passed since I've felt good that time. So what
We
is it
can
that?
so often get caught up in the busyness of life, can't we? Whether that's as a parent and all your energies go into supporting your children, and then maybe they grow up or they need you less as they get older, and you suddenly think, oh, who am I now? Or you've been working, you've had a career, and then you retire or whatever reason, you're no longer in that situation. And who am I now? Because that core of your identity, how you knew yourself and how other people kind of knew you as well, because we so often attach our identity to what we do rather than who we are.
Yes.
We introduce ourselves. Hello, my name is, and I am a teacher, nurse, doctor. We don't talk about who we are. We talk about what
Yeah.
we do.
I don't
So
even
it
know how we will talk
well,
about ourselves.
no, we don't. It's not something that is familiar to us as to how we express that, is it? We struggle.
Yeah. So tell me, if people listening, if they want to get in touch with you, you have any? Do you want to share some of the ways that people can work with you?
Yeah, indeed. Uh, People can work with me one-to-one. I have a transformational journey program, but I also now am creating it's called a Create Your Own Wild Wellbeing program. It's currently in its beta stage, so it's still in development, and I'm looking for people who would like to come along and try it out and give me some feedback. And the price reflects that, because it is, as I say, at the testing stage at the moment. But it's a load of modules that are there to help you to enhance your self-care, help you to develop a deeper understanding of who you are and how best to create the environment that will help you thrive in very small, simple, doable, bite-sized steps. And that is on my website, or if anybody is interested, just get in touch. And it's probably easier for me to talk about it rather than trying to work out where do you go with it if it's new to you. I also have it's a 3-day workshop. I'm really excited about it. It's called Introduction to Meta Consciousness. Meta consciousness being basically what it says. It's that overarching consciousness, awareness of the fact that we are these multi-layered beings and that we are beings of nature. And how does that all come together and fit together in the world in which we live? And how does our body then respond? And how do we support our body into the best well-being that it can have, while also understanding when we have symptoms of dis-ease, that's actually just messages from the body, it's information. And we can use that information to know how better to support ourselves to be to experience greater well-being and greater freedom and joy and all of those things that we really long for, because our Western way of looking at medicine and looking after our health is actually more focused on illness, because we look for all the symptoms of disease. So that's our focus. And then we put medication on that to take it away. Versus if I'm in pain, I have inflammation, I have stiffness, or whatever symptoms I might be having. Oh, again, that's interesting. Curiosity, what is that telling me? What's not working in my life, in my environment, in my thought patterns and my beliefs, or whatever it might be, that isn't supporting me? So this 3-day workshop looks at that and looks at how to work with that, work with your body, because so often we've got a bit of a love-hate relationship with our body. It does so many things for us, but we don't like the size we are, we don't like the way we look, or we've been told that it's not the optimum. You know, you should look like this and you should be able to do this. And maybe that's not how it is for you. So yeah, it's looking at all of that and how you can develop that self-compassion, that understanding, that insight, and therefore be able to support yourself to really thrive, to feel really at home within your own body, knowing who you are and able to stand strong in that. So yeah, I've got some dates at the end of this month, the end of August, and in September, and then I'll be looking for ones later on as well. And I can send you all the links then, Einav, for, as you said, you're happy to share my connections and so on. So that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah. We at the end of the conversation we will add all the links to the chat, so people can reach out and find out more as they wish. This workshop sounds incredible, actually. So is that face to face? Is that where is that happening?
It's currently face-to-face. The 3-day version of it is face-to-face, because I think if you had 3 days on Zoom, it would probably blow your mind and your eyes would be square. So I am also considering putting it together as an online package, but running it in a different way, because, yeah, you'd just be totally zoomed out by the end of 3 days. But yes, feel free, people, to get in touch with me, and my website address is just there on the screen, ecoenergy.com. So quite simple.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Robyn. Any last message people can take away before we finish for today?
I think it would be just give yourselves permission to engage in deep self-care and in getting to know you and what makes you happy. And again, permission just to explore that and to make time for that in your life. And I'm so passionate about the fact that self-care isn't selfish. It's the best gift that you can give everybody around you, not only yourself, because you feel better and then you are a happier person. And we all know what it's like to be around happy, joyful, thriving people. Their energy is amazing. It's infectious. It's uplifting. It's inspiring. So when we do that for ourselves, that's what we bring to the world.
Nice. I like that message very much. Well, thank you very much, Robyn, for everything that you brought to this wonderful conversation. I hope people will get in touch. As we said, we'll leave the links at the bottom. And yes, of course, the replay is here as well, so people can be reminded of the conversation as well as they need it. Thank you so much, Robyn, for being here with us today. I really thank you for all you are and all that you bring, all your wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you, Einav. It's been a joy to be here and lovely to share with your audience. Thank you.
Thanks.